Welcome to the Real World. My name is Cameron. Thank you so much for joining us on episode 83 of the Real World podcast. Today we're talking all about the Coen brothers. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Real World. Thank you to all of our subscribers. We're almost to 500 subscribers. Thank you again for all of your support. If you have not subscribed, make sure you do so, clicking the bell below so you get notified of all of our videos. Today on the Real World podcast, we're talking about the Coen brothers. But before we do that, let's jump into some movie news. 4 Beatles biopics are on their way from Sony and director Sam Mendes. He's going to direct all 4 movies. Each film will focus on a different band member, including John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr. The theatrical release for these films is set for 2027. Gareth Edwards is set to helm the next Jurassic film. He dropped everything for this movie because he says it is a dream come true. He's a huge fan of the franchise, so I'm really curious to see what he ends up doing with that next film. Speaking of Jurassic, Jurassic League is an animated film coming from DC and producer James Gunn. This is following the recent DC comic storyline where the Justice League are dinosaurs. So that's going to be a very interesting animated movie. Glad to see that DC is jumping into theatrically released animated films. That's really exciting. Josh Brolin is set to star in Zach Cregger's next movie. It's a horror film titled Weapons. Cregger, of course, directed the recent Barbarian, which was a huge hit. So I'm very curious to see what this director does next. Mickey 17 gets a new release date of January 31st, 2025. This is Bong Joon-ho's next film he's directing, and it stars Robert Pattinson. It's sort of a sci-fi film, so it got bumped significantly from this year to next year, but still highly anticipating that collaboration. Ballerina moves from summer of this year to summer of next year. So it will also release in 2025. It's the John Wick spinoff starring Ana de Armas. There are going to be some new action sequences shot by Chad Stahelski and Len Wiseman, who's directing this new movie. Chad Stahelski, of course, directed the first 4 John Wick movies. So he's being brought in to kind of amp up the action a little bit. But The Crow remake is taking the Ballerina's slot of June 7th of this year. That reboot is starring Bill Skarsgård. Very curious to see what they do with that film. I'm a pretty big fan of the original with Brandon Lee, which unfortunately was his final film before he passed. Tom Cruise is set to star in the next film from director Alejandro Inarritu, who directed The Revenant. Great director. This is going to be a really interesting collaboration. Destin Daniel Cretton is set to direct the live-action Naruto film. This is, of course, based on the popular manga and anime series. He also helmed Marvel's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, is set to direct the sequel to that film as well. So I'm very curious to see what he does with this very popular property. The first Avatar: The Last Airbender animated feature film is set to debut in theaters October 10th, 2025. Superman Legacy released a first cast photo at the table read that happened this week. They're set to start shooting very soon, and possibly we got a new logo revealed too, which was very exciting. The trailer for Borderlands just released online. It's set for an August 9th debut. Other trailers that debuted recently are Knox Goes Away, starring Michael Keaton, Al Pacino, and James Marsden, and Bill Skarsgård starring in Boy Kills World. That is set for release on April 26th. Let us know your favorite trailer, your favorite piece of movie news that dropped this week in the comments below. All right, folks, well, that's it for movie news. Now it's time to jump into our main topic. As I said up top, it is the Coen brothers, this directing pair that I am a huge fan of. Joining me on this episode is Josh. How you doing, man?
Hey, doing well. Looking forward to talking about these two brother filmmakers.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. You don't get many that are a pair that typically direct together and are also brothers. It's pretty rare, although there are a few out there. So yeah, this should be a fun discussion. What we're going to do is a little different. We're going to kind of just talk about them up front, and then we'll kind of going to just go through their entire filmography. And so that should be fun. But at the end, we will reveal our top 5 favorites. So stick around till the end. It should be a lot of fun. Let us know in the comments below your favorite Coen brothers movies. So let's get things started. All right, so here we are talking about the Coen brothers. Long time coming. I'm kind of surprised we haven't talked about them before on the podcast. They're, like I said, a favorite directing pair of mine. I really enjoy pretty much all their movies, to varying degrees, as we'll get into in a moment. But they're really interesting, filmmakers. uh, currently 69 and 66 years of age. Joel is the older
Wow.
Coen brother, and then Ethan is the younger. And they've been filmmakers for a long time, since 1984 when they made their first film, Blood Simple. They're also writers as well, so they don't just direct movies; they write movies. They've actually also written a couple of movies for other directors, and they're producers as well. So
Hmm.
they kind of cover the big three. They're writing, directing, and producing. Joel is married to Frances McDormand, who's a frequent star
Oh.
in their films. They've actually been married since 1984 when they made their first movie together, Blood
Oh,
Simple.
wow.
Yeah, they got married that same year and have been married ever since, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that's
So
a rarity in Hollywood. That's
I
awesome.
know, right? Yeah, I was pretty surprised to find that out. It's pretty neat. The
Hmm.
Blu-ray I have here from Criterion of Blood Simple, their first film, has several interviews on it, and she's one of the interviews that they did, which is really neat. So, yeah, so she's a big part of their collaborations as well. They collaborate with a number of people, Barry Sonnenfeld and Roger Deakins, most famously, numerous times on their films. Carter Burwell with the
Hmm.
music too, and a few others.
Yeah.
So they kind of have that kind of close-knit family of filmmakers that they work with often. Ethan Coen is married to Trisha Cook, who's a film editor. They got married back in 1990. These guys were born in Minnesota into a Jewish family, and that's
Hmm.
kind of where they grew up. Ended up, kind of moving around and trying to get into the movie scene. One thing that's unique about their movies, especially their earlier work, is they would shoot in Texas. Blood Simple, for example, was shot in Texas when back in a time when movies were just kind of shot in either New York or California. That was kind of
Hmm.
basically it. The middle
Yeah.
of the country didn't have a lot of that, but they kind of broke that mold and shot a lot in
Hmm.
Texas and in their home state of Minnesota as well, for some of their earlier work, which is pretty neat. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of them. They're very kind of quirky filmmakers. They have a lot of eccentricities about them, about their
Hmm.
work, very offbeat humor. A lot of it's very kind of darkly comedic at times. That's kind of what they're known for. But they grew up, falling in love with movies through television. They're kind of that generation that watched a lot of movies on TV. Movies they cited as being, some of the ones they watched most frequently when they grew up is the classic Tarzan films, as well
Hmm.
as the Italian-made Hercules movies from
Hmm.
back in the day, and some comedies that they enjoyed starring Jerry Lewis, Doris Day, and Bob Hope. So they really like all those classic
Hey.
comedies as well, which is cool. So yeah, very American storytellers. All of their films take place in America, primarily American cast.
Hmm.
Very can be very subversive, very satirical. Their narratives are never sentimental. You should never accuse them of being overly sentimental. They're very kind of harsh and bleak about, humanity and the depravity of man and that
Hmm.
kind of thing, which is pretty interesting. And one of the ways that they describe it is they're a lot of the stories they tell are about how bad people are, but how great life is. So there's always like a little bit of hope in their movies too.
Hmm.
It's not all bad all the time necessarily. So I like that. They have a lot of, very complex, kind of layered and like I said, very quirky characters in their stories. They also are known for kind of the cyclical nature of storytelling. They like kind of going full circle with a narrative a lot. You kind of a lot of times will end up at
Yeah.
the same place you started in some of their movies, which is interesting. So for them, it's more about the journey than the destination. Obviously, that's kind of
Hmm.
one of their kind of primary, storytelling kind of elements. So yeah, I really like again their movies. They're just very intelligent filmmakers. They're great with actors. Actors like working with them. As I said, actors work with them time and time again. George Clooney and John Goodman, and a lot of these actors you'll see come back time and time again in their films, whether in big or small parts. So again, I like that kind of close-knit family that they've created with certain filmmakers over the course of their career. One of the biggest being Sam Raimi, who they actually lived with. They shared a house with him when they were very young, making their first movies. He was making Evil Dead, and they were making Blood Simple, and they were living together at the time and writing
Hmm.
together. And he actually, one of the movies that we'll talk about, he has a co-writing credit. He's the only guy to have a co-writing credit on one of their films. So pretty interesting, to see kind of where their respective careers went. Raimi and the Coens, very kind of different, yet there's some similarities between them as well. So we'll
Yeah.
talk about that soon. But I'll mention a couple more things. Josh, anything you wanted to say specifically about the Coen brothers?
Well, you mentioned them being one of your favorite directors. I think for this podcast, I've realized that they kind of are that for me too.
Mm,
Like, I don't know, I feel like they've always been on the fringe for me. Like I've seen a movie here or there or whatever, but not enough to, maybe until like a couple of years ago, I hadn't really seen enough to go, okay, this is my collective idea of what their kind of movies are.
right.
But especially with, as I saw a couple more for the podcast that I hadn't seen yet, it was like, no, I really do like a good amount. I was looking, I think I own at least three of their movies.
Oh, cool.
Um, and so I was like, oh, okay. Like I've just kind of, it's kind of been like a slow build without me really realizing.
Right.
And then it just kind of struck me. I was like, wait, I've got two of their movies rated at 5 stars, and out of like the 9 I've seen, and
Yeah,
I really like several of the others anyway that aren't rated 5.
right.
So I was like, yeah, I think I really like I'm really picking up what they're putting down.
Right, right. Yeah, they have a wide range of different types of movies, which
They
again
do.
we'll get into. But yeah, they're really interesting filmmakers, really really unique. They do a lot of period pieces. They
Hmm.
like that a lot. They also have a lot of influences from classic cinema that they're big fans of, which we'll go into more detail on. But for Blood Simple specifically, their first film they were watching stuff like The Third Man, which is a classic noir film, Doctor Strangelove by Stanley Kubrick, which is a kind of
Mm.
interesting comedy, The Conformist, which is a French film, and then The Road Warrior, which is, of course,
Oh,
the Australian Mad Max, the second Mad Max movie. So that's kind
that's an
of
interesting.
very eclectic, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a very unique kind of mix of influences that they have, and so yeah, they're great. I mean, I've watched many interviews with them. I own looks like 5 of their movies, so and I'm gonna order another one very soon. One that I just got to see for the first time this week. I can't wait to own it. They are directors that as I'm watching these interviews, they're kind of brothers can be, you can either be very, not close with your siblings or very
Mm.
close, and you can tell they're very
Hmm.
close. They get along very well. They're almost of the same mind on many things.
Mm.
The actors have called them kind of the two-headed director because it's kind of like, they're very similar and they'll trade off, talking to the actors or talking to the crew
Oh.
or they kind of there's not one that does one thing on the set and one that does the
Mm.
other thing. They're very much doing similar things. So
That's cool.
they kind of finish each other's sentences. They're almost twins. You could almost if you didn't know, you would think they were twins maybe, even though they don't look exactly alike, but they're just very similar in
Fraternal.
their sensibilities and things like that. So yeah, they're very enthusiastic too.
Hmm.
Is another thing I picked up on is even though they can be kind of very quiet and measured and kind of how they speak, you can tell that there's a great passion for cinema and cinematic
Mm.
storytelling. So yeah, they're visionaries, they're great collaborators, and yeah, like I said, some of my favorite directors ever. So let's start the journey. Are you ready to start with Blood Simple?
So I had a couple more things I want to mention
Yeah, sure,
first.
go ahead.
You mentioned, just to tag on something you said. You said that, talked about them collaborating with actors and other crew and et cetera. And I
Hmm.
feel like maybe it's just ignorance on my part, but I feel like out of all the directors I know that do have those frequent collaborators, like Christopher Nolan's a big one that has
Mm,
several actors or even composers and crew in his circle
yeah,
that he always rehires, which I know everyone does, but
sure.
to a certain degree. But I feel like they have maybe the most, at least that I know of. Like
Yeah,
uh, especially actors. Like they have a maybe, I don't know, maybe Wes Anderson would top it, but I don't know. Everyone always wants to be in his movie, so I don't know if that counts.
right.
I don't know if that's him or if that's
Right.
everybody else. But it seems like the Coens have like a fairly large group of people that they
Yeah.
always have, and like as I'm seeing more of these, and then remembering the ones I didn't rewatch that I've seen, I was like, they have a good list of like rotating actors that'll come in
Hmm.
and do parts for their films. So I just thought that was just something I was going to point out is how much it is that they collaborate, how many collaborations are going on. I thought was really cool. One thing
Yeah.
I really liked that I noticed is and it's not true for all their movies because they're not all styled this way, but they handle music really well when they do
Yes.
include it, like inside Llewyn Davis and Oh
Yeah.
Brother Where Art Thou, and
Right.
even True Grit with
Mm,
the score
yeah.
of adapting hymns. What I
Right.
think when they do, they don't always, yeah, like I said, they don't always do music, but when they do, I feel like they do a really, really good job with it. Maybe
Yeah.
aside from Edgar Wright, I think they maybe like them two, the Coens and Edgar Wright, are like the most inclusive with music as like a part
Yes,
of the storytelling aspect.
definitely. Yeah, I agree. I agree. You can definitely pick up on that on other films.
Well, I can mention this when we come to a film, but their writing of dialogue is very good. But
Yeah.
that was one thing I picked up on.
Yes.
But the only other thing you mentioned weird, like a little eccentricity.
Yeah.
I totally butchered that word.
Right.
Um, and that was always something that I thought was like connect like the through line with their films. But something a friend brought up, which I thought was a really interesting point, and I want to hear your take on it, was like they thought maybe like the motif going through their films is also like uh, a sense of unease. Like
Yeah.
they it seems like they enjoy creating a sense of unease in the audience and the viewer.
Yes.
Um, I don't know. I just what do you think about that?
Yeah, they definitely do. They're great at building tension, through
Mm-hmm.
music, through editing, through cinematography and performance and all of it. So yeah, they're experts at suspense, you could say. I mean, almost like
Mm-hmm.
Hitchcock in that way. So yeah, they definitely do that well. There is a sort of I've been watching a lot of YouTubers talk about their the nature of their storytelling, and there is a certain unease that they have about the future. A lot of their
Mm-hmm.
characters will kind of that's why they do a lot of those full circle narratives, because the characters are never ready to move on with their life, or they're never ready to kind of go into the next phase of life. They're kind of stuck. A lot of their characters are very stuck
Mm-hmm.
in the same spot and don't want to move on, or don't want to go to the next phase of life or whatever. A lot of their movies are set in the past too, and so it's kind of a commentary on where we've come from. And I think their general consensus is we haven't done a good job of of moving along and society as humanity. So yeah, that's definitely something that they bring up a lot, is a certain unease about just kind of life in general, and kind of the
Mm-hmm.
the nature of man and that kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's another reason I really enjoy them, because they do have a very unique kind of voice in that.
There's always a layer of depth to whatever story they're telling. Like they're not just flim flam, whatever, like, oh, we're just
Right.
gonna tell the story and have fun with it. I mean, they do,
Yes.
but there's
Sure.
always a level of there's always that depth. There's always that
Yes.
there's a density in the story they're
Mm,
trying to tell. It's not just face
absolutely.
value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. Yep. Great. Anything else before we jump in?
That was it.
Cool. All right. Well, we're jumping in with a movie I've already mentioned several times, Blood Simple. I like this one more and more every time I watch it. It's,
Mm,
on Criterion for a reason. They pick, movies that are important in some way. And so it's not just that it's the first Coen Brothers movie, it's that this movie, it was so difficult to make. First of all, they had to raise the money themselves. This didn't go through a studio or anything like
mm,
that. They were, film students, and they were like, hey, we just want to go make a feature film. And so they went down to Texas and, started shooting it. Barry Sonnenfeld, as I mentioned before, a frequent collaborator with them, as the cinematographer on this. He's gone on to direct the Men in Black movies and all kinds of other,
mm,
fun movies. But he's cinematographer here, and just has some really unique, shots and setups and lighting and things like that are really interesting. It was really fun. This Blu-ray I have has a commentary with the Coens and Barry Sonnenfeld. And it's a unique commentary because they're not just watching the movie, they're sitting at desks with iPads they're watching it on, and they can actually draw, kind of like a sports commentator
oh,
draws on the
cool.
screen. So they can draw while you're watching the movie with them, like, oh, here's the lighting source, and here's what we were doing. Here's something in the background you might not have noticed. All kinds of stuff like that. So it's a really
That's
unique
cool.
commentary that I really liked. I hope they do more of those in the future. Um, so really interesting filmmaking. Again, Frances McDormand is in this. She's a major character here. An actor I really like, Emmett Walsh, who people know from stuff like
Mm,
Blade Runner, is in this. He was kind of the big name that they were able to get. And it's a really unique story how he was cast. There's so much great info on this Blu-ray. There's so many interviews and different things on it. But it's a movie I really like. It's a crime story. It's kind of a neo-noir. It's again, that unique setting of Texas, and it's a kind of got several twists and turns in it, which is a lot of fun.
mhm.
So it's well written. It's technically I wouldn't say it's their best movie, but it's kind of the one that I appreciate the most because I know that they
Hmm.
only had like, I don't know, it was very, very low. It was under $1 million, the budget,
Yeah.
very, very low budget. And so it's one that the more I watch it, the more I enjoy it because I know what they were working with and kind of where it leads to. And you can see a lot of their very, primal elements of their storytelling is in here, kind of the dark comedy. A lot of that's in there kind of, shocking violent moments of shocking
Hmm.
violence that kind of just happen and then, they move on to the next thing. So just again, a lot of things that I really like here that I think is really, really solid. And especially for first time filmmakers, you can tell that they are, very unique and that they definitely have vision, something unique to say in the medium of film. So, yeah, that's one that I really enjoy. And it kicked off their career. Have you seen Blood Simple yet?
I got to see it for the first time because of the podcast. So
Oh,
thank you.
great. Great. What'd you think?
Yeah, I liked it. At first, I was like, I don't know, I don't remember at what point, but at some point in the movie, I was like, okay, where are we going with this?
Hmm.
And then I think I took a break and I had like, I don't know, put my dishes away or something, and then I was thinking about that, and I came back, and then like the third act was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Totally icing on the cake, blew me away. I
Right.
was like, oh, that's great. Um, yeah, that totally answered that question.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was wondering. I agree that it's actually where to. I won't reveal where I have it yet, but
Okay.
I agree that they've gotten better, obviously, as everyone does.
Yes, sure.
But I'm interested, where do you, especially because this is a part of the Criterion collection, like I'm interested how you see this first film of theirs compared to other directorial debuts from like Nolan or Spielberg or what have you.
Yeah, I think it's up there with some of the best, honestly. I mean, when I think about, Nolan's first film following, I think, he definitely, again, there's markers of all of his kind of
Hmm.
trademark stuff. Similar with Spielberg and Duel, I think there's definitely some interesting things there that he did. I would maybe even put this above those. I don't know. I feel like out of the gate, they really just had a strong sense of story
Hmm.
and visual, storytelling.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would put this up there for me with some of the best debuts ever.
Yeah, I would agree. I haven't seen Duel yet, but I was
Okay.
thinking about that as you were talking about like the behind the scenes stuff. I was like, oh, thinking
Right.
about that compared to uh, following, and I was like, I like this one better. I think this one's
Yeah.
a like a notch above it.
Right. I agree. I agree.
But
Yep. Great. All right. Well, let's move on to their second film, Raising Arizona. So this film is very interesting. It very much goes in a different direction from Blood Simple, which is a very kind
mm,
of grounded, gritty crime story, and into a kind of wacky crime comedy, I guess you could say. I mean, it's almost like a Looney Tunes episode. Some of the
mm.
crazy visuals here that happen. Have you seen this one yet or no?
No,
Okay,
no, it was one of the ones I almost did, but it was one of the ones I picked a different movie instead.
that's fine. That's fine. I won't give away too much, but Nick Cage is great in it. It's one of his
Mm,
first performances. He's very young. And Holly Hunter is in it as well, who's fantastic. And it's again, I just love seeing their range here. I mean, they haven't really gone this wacky since. But you can definitely see elements of their kind of zany comedy throughout their filmography, but nowhere
mhm,
greater than here. I mean, this is just
mm.
really over the top, really wild. I mean, the again, like what the camera's doing, it reminds me a lot of Evil Dead, like Sam Raimi's wacky style in Evil Dead. I don't know how much influence he had on this movie specifically, but I think, I mean, obviously, they're good friends, so they're constantly, I'm sure, talking about, what's your next movie? What are you going to do? How are you going to shoot it? And I feel like there was a lot of maybe Raimi influence in this one, so definitely worth checking out. Very funny, very just easy to watch and fun. So that one's definitely worth checking out. That one did have a slightly bigger budget, and it did bring in a lot of money that allowed them to make the following film that they did, which had a significantly larger budget as well. It's kind of interesting to see kind of their budgets grow and the box office kind of Really the budgets and the box office both fluctuate on each of their films in an interesting way. But yeah, Erasing Arizona is definitely a fun watch.
Do you know offhand if Barry Sonnenfeld has done any of Raimi's movies, or
I'm
maybe
not
that was just
sure.
they talked and then it flowed down to Barry.
Yeah, it's possible. It's possible. I didn't look into that. I should, and we should find out, but I don't specifically know if they did or not. The next film that they produced, again, they wrote and directed, I think, every single one of these, from what I know. Miller's Crossing. This is one I just got to watch this week for the first time. Had a $14 million budget, and it's one of these sort of gangster films. It's all set like back in the 30s, and it has it's basically two kind of warring, gangs kind of
Mm.
vying for power, and this guy that's caught in the middle is kind of the whole story. And Gabriel Byrne is the lead character, and he does a great job. It's got a great cast. It's really well produced. The production design and everything, it really does take you back in time. And so, yeah, it's one that I greatly enjoyed. I think I ended up giving it 4 stars. So, have you seen Miller's Crossing?
No, I did not.
Okay.
That was one of the ones I didn't get a chance to.
Gotcha. No problem. That's a good one. Definitely worth checking out. Has again that kind of full circle narrative in a fun
Mm.
way. Has like, certain scenes that are kind of like mirrored, like they'll play out one way in the beginning of the movie, and then later in the movie they play it out, but it's totally different dynamic. So yeah, that one's a lot of fun. Definitely worth watching. Then they did a film with a slightly lower budget because Miller's Crossing didn't make its budget back. So they ended up doing one called Barton Fink. And Barton Fink had a lower budget, but was critically acclaimed. It was hailed, I think, at the Academy Awards. I think it got nominated for several Oscars, and
Wow.
was John Turturro's big kind of breakout role as well. Yeah, that's an interesting one I have not seen.
Hmm.
So I've heard a lot about it. I know it has a lot of horror vibes in it. I heard it's kind of like The
Oh,
Shining, because it's about a
interesting.
writer kind of in a hotel that's haunted. So I'm really curious about that one. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it streaming anywhere, so I was unable to see it. But that's definitely on my list. Have you had a chance to watch that one?
No.
Gotcha. Okay, great. So we'll just move on to their next film. After that kind of, critically acclaimed film is like huge accolades. Coen brothers are, on top of the world. They can do anything they want now. And so they're basically given a blank check by this guy named Joel Silver, who many people will know.
Okay.
He's a big time producer back in the 90s. And he had his own production company, and he's like a huge fan of all their work. So he was like, all right, guys, I'm giving you literally a blank check. Go and make whatever you want to make. I don't care what it is. So they were like, okay. So they had this idea that they had developed for kind of an old school throwback what Sam Raimi calls a big business comedy. This is the one that was co-written by Raimi. And he actually also directed
Mm.
the second unit on this film. It's called The Hudsucker
Oh.
Proxy. And this is a film that kind of harkens back to the ones they were specifically looking at, a couple of my favorites. Sullivan's Travels by Preston Sturges, which is a really great classic film. His Girl Friday by Howard Hawks was one that they were kind of referencing here, as well as like Frank Capra's movies, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, It's a Wonderful Life, that kind of stuff. Sweet Smell of Success is another one that's kind of similar in this vein. So this is what they were kind of aiming for, a kind of classic kind of screwball comedy mixed with like a big business kind of corporate espionage, thing. So it's really an interesting movie. It's very different. It kind of combines a lot of the elements of like Raising Arizona, kind of the zany,
Mm.
like, use of camera work, can get very kind of cartoonish at times.
Mm.
But yet it's very kind of grounded at the same time. It has a great cast. Tim Robbins is in this. He's fantastic. Jennifer Jason
Oh.
Leigh is in this as well. Paul Newman does an excellent job here. So this is one that I just saw for the first time this week, and it's the one that I want to own. This is a movie that I just
Wow.
adored every second of it. Again, I'm a big fan of all these, classic films that they just mentioned. So
Hmm.
seeing them kind of put their Coen twist on that was so cool. Just a
Good
really,
point.
really fun movie. Very fun to watch. Very, great, again, production design, the elaborate sets. Again, this is their biggest budget. I think it was like 30 million. So it's like a huge step up from, their
Mm,
biggest budget up into this point was like 14. So it's
yeah.
literally just this huge budget and it's all on screen. There's great use of like miniatures because it's on this big city. And so they, use those miniatures to create this big city. And the big like corporate offices, and the huge conference tables and like everything's just very big and grand, has that kind of feel to it. And it's the non-true story of how the hula hoop was invented. That's
Oh,
it's not actually based on how the hula hoop was invented, but it's their take on it basically. So it's really fun. Again, it has a great, darkly comic vibe to it. A little bit of like a fantasy element at times. Again, everything's just very big in this movie, and it's played big, and the actors are playing it very theatrical and kind of over the top. But it just works. It works really well. The tone that they set just totally was perfect. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of this movie on one viewing. I really, really enjoy it. I can't wait to add it to the collection. So, yeah, that's the Hudsucker Proxy. I'm guessing, have you seen this or no?
no,
Okay.
I
Okay.
was like, I had one more. I was like, oh, what am I gonna watch? Last night, I was like, I got one more slot. What am I gonna
Okay.
watch? And
Okay.
I opted to watch something I'd already watched that had been too long
Gotcha.
since
Gotcha.
I've seen it. I
Okay.
needed to refresh on it. But I
Gotcha.
did see your, I didn't read your review, but I saw
Hmm.
your high rating on it. I was like, oh, maybe I should watch this one. But
Yeah, yeah. It's
I was
on
very close.
Roku channel with ads. That's how I watched it. So not the best way
Oh,
to
okay.
watch it, but it is on Blu-ray, and I'm gonna pick that one up soon. All right, moving into Fargo now. Fargo, of
Mm,
course, this was their big hit after, again, Barton Fink was a big success critically, not necessarily box office wise. Hudsucker Proxy was a huge failure. Even though it had their
mm,
biggest budget, it was their biggest bomb. Although it's gained a cult following since, but Fargo was the huge kind of breakout movie. It was, again, going back down budget wise to only 7 million, shooting it in their home state of
whoa.
Minnesota and just had a great story, and so it hit
Mm,
big. This made over $60 million.
wow.
So it was a big hit domestically. This, of course, having Frances McDormand return, and William H. Macy. I mean, the cast in this is fantastic. Steve Buscemi, who shows up in a lot of their movies, Peter Stormare.
Mm,
So really good cast, very well written. This movie is just really fun to watch, even though, like, per usual, has very darkly comedic moments throughout it, and is again about how terrible people can be. But it really is very funny and heartfelt at the same time. Has some good kind of character interactions and character moments in it. So, big fan of Fargo. Josh, what do you think of this one?
so this is, I think this may be the first one I saw of theirs before I really acclimated to their style or
Sure.
understood it.
Right.
So I need to rewatch this one. It
Yeah.
didn't like, I enjoyed it for what it was,
Hmm.
and actually my great uncle is in it. He plays
Oh,
Wade Gustafson.
oh,
Uh,
right. I forgot you told me that. Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, so that's really cool, and that
Yeah.
was like another plus. But at the time I didn't really, was like not up or acclimated to like the dark, that level of dark comedy.
Right. Right.
So it'd be interesting now going back actually, and after having seen much more of their filmography, to
Yeah.
go back and rewatch that one.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely worth revisiting. I want to revisit it too because I think I've only seen it once as well.
Mm.
Another one that I'd like to rewatch is their next film, The Big Lebowski, which gets a lot of praise. It's one of those, cult films that's hugely popular and, quoted often.
Lots
I
of
just didn't really
gifts.
get it. It's another one of those that I kind of felt like, yeah, I don't know. I just
Mm.
I mean it was kind of fun. Some parts were kind of fun, funny. Jeff Bridges is always great. I'm a big fan of, like I said, John Goodman and Steve Buscemi. They're kind
Mm.
of fun, but I don't know. For whatever reason, I just couldn't get into the story. Like I feel like I really
Mm.
got into Fargo or into a lot of these other movies. It's kind of one of those I call them hangout movies. You kind of just turn it on and you're just hanging out with these characters. There's the plot is it's kind of there, but it's not really like
The
super
driving
engaging or
factor.
interesting. Yeah, I don't know. So that one had a $15 million budget, made 46 million domestically. So it was a pretty decent hit. Any thoughts on Big Lebowski? Have you seen that one?
No,
Okay.
probably their biggest one I did not see.
Gotcha.
Um, it's probably arguably one of their most famous ones. But
Yeah,
did I wonder if like, do you think it was because of the expectations? Maybe that's
possibly.
why, like, this giant thing. I don't know. Kind of that
Hmm.
happened to me when I saw Gladiator for the first time, because it had been
Right,
like, you know, probably about 2 decades of hearing about it, and then
right.
finally saw it, and I was like, it didn't quite live up to my
Mm,
expectations. So I need to
yeah,
give it another shot, give it a fair shake. But I don't know if maybe that was something like, if that applied here, when you saw it, like
possibly.
you was expecting this thing, and it was just kind of like, I don't get the hype here.
Right.
What?
Yeah. I think that's probably what it was. I think, if I had been a moviegoer and seen that in the theaters, I probably would have
Mm,
been like, whoa, this is amazing. But yeah, after hearing how amazing it is and then watching it and being like, what? That probably did play into it. You're probably right.
mm.
Moving on to their next film, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Released in the year 2000. This movie is, one of my favorites. I adore this movie. The soundtrack is fantastic. The cast is great. They took a big risk with George Clooney. He hadn't really done comedy like this or any kind of movie
Mm.
like this. He's coming off of Batman and Robin, right? So it's kind of one of those that they took a little bit of a risk on him, and it paid off big time. I mean, he does such a great job, as
Oh
the lead
yeah.
here, and then John Turturro and Tim Blake Nelson are both fantastic as kind of co-leads with him. Really fun. Maybe because I'm from the South, I hear that kind of music a lot, the bluegrass and the country music and the folk music, Southern gospel, all of
Hmm.
that is just really great. And like you said earlier, the way they utilize the music I mean, this is almost a musical, right? It's like on
Yeah.
the edge of being a musical. But the music does play so naturally into the story, that it doesn't feel like that. They're not just randomly breaking out into song. So, it's really fun though. It's very funny. I think it's by far their funniest film. I'm laughing throughout the entire
Mm.
movie every time I watch it.
Yeah, I'd agree
And
with that.
so, yeah, I'm a big fan of this film. And Roger Deakins, of course, I think he was nominated. Yeah, best cinematography. Roger Deakins nominated
Mm.
for this one, and they were nominated for the screenplay, which is fantastic. It's a take on the Odyssey by Homer,
Yes.
which is really interesting. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of this film. I watched it, rewatched it again this week, and this Blu-ray has a couple bonus features that were interesting to watch too. So yeah, I'm a huge, huge fan. I've got the soundtrack, I got the CD. I played it in my car all the time. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this one a lot. It's definitely among my favorites. Do you like Brother Where Art Thou as well?
Yeah, I actually just saw it for the first time yesterday, 2 days ago.
Wow,
Um,
cool.
yeah, I had heard it, like I'd heard it probably, actually, aside from Fargo, this is probably the one their movie that I had heard of, and like for the longest time, for the longest.
Right.
I feel like it's, I don't know if I want to say infamous, but it's maybe I could say it's infamous for what it is, for like the
Right.
uniqueness and everything
Yep.
that's unique and that makes it the movie it is. I think
Right.
it's infamous. I'd say it's probably infamous for.
I agree.
Um, but yeah, I was. It's an interesting movie.
Yeah.
If I feel like if it didn't say that it was, if they didn't say in the beginning that it was based on Homer's Odyssey, I probably would have been tempted to. I don't know if I would have been tempted to turn it off, because I almost never do that. I never do that, actually.
Right.
Um, okay, almost never do that. But because of the zany level of zaniness going on,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, I feel like if I didn't realize they were adapting something, I would have been like,
Yeah. What's going on?
what
Yeah.
are they doing
Right, right,
in this
right.
movie?
Yeah.
But because I mean, I haven't read I haven't heard the Odyssey since, like, I don't know if it was middle school or high school. But from the pieces I remember of the story, like the sirens and Cyclops and different things
Right.
like that, it was cool to identify, like, oh,
Yeah.
that's what this is the part of the story
Right.
that they're doing. I thought
Yeah.
that was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, and that gave it some leeway, if you will,
Mm.
to where those wacky things were like, okay, I know why, because this is a part of the original story. That's why they just did this thing that seems so silly or odd or what have you.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
But I think they also did a good job bracing those moments, if you will, with like little bits of quirky throughout.
Right.
Like even right from the get go with the three leads. Maybe not Tim Blake Nelson's character, but George
Right.
Clooney and John Turturro.
Yep.
Like those are George Clooney is pretty much like always kind of like Kate Blanchett, where they are very classy actors and
Yes.
they always have classy roles.
Uh-huh.
So this is totally totally different
Right.
for George Clooney. I've never seen him in a role like this,
Yeah.
and so it was interesting. Like you said, it could have been horrible. Like it could have just not worked. Where
Mm-hmm.
it
Yep.
just didn't. It just didn't work. But it did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I feel like for John Turturro, like that Southern accent, like it was good. But
Yeah.
but like in a normal movie, I would be like, why is he have a Southern accent?
Right. Right.
But it just like you said, it just worked for the movie for the
Yeah.
different things they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just all came together. And I really like John Goodman's acting as well. This was another
Yeah.
one where I feel like I have not seen him do a role like this.
Yeah.
It almost didn't even sound like John Goodman.
Right. Right.
Like that tone he has, where that
Mm-hmm.
you can like listen to it, and you're like, oh, it's John Goodman. Like he
Right.
almost didn't. There was like a couple pieces where I caught it, but like
Yeah.
overall, it was almost you couldn't almost tell it was him.
That's true.
But another thing I really liked about it was they must have recorded it live. It sounded really like they recorded it live, or they
Mm.
duplicated. If they recorded the music, sorry, if they recorded the
Right.
songs after the fact, then they would have had to mimic the mic and the camera movement,
Yes.
because like the Down to the River song, which was it blew me away. It was
Right.
phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're passing by the camera's passing by specific people, and you can pick up their voice as it's
Yes.
going by. And
Yes.
that's not something that you often hear in a movie. Usually it
Yeah.
stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what made me think, except for obviously the trio's singing,
Right. Right.
everything else seemed like it was recorded live, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, great music here. I'm pretty sure this is their first collaboration with T-Bone Burnett, who
Mm,
worked on, several other of their movies. But yeah, absolutely wonderful, kind of a musical journey that's taken through the South. And it's got that kind of cool redemption kind of story to it as well, which
yeah.
I feel like this is one of the more hopeful Coen Brothers
Mm,
movies, even though it can
that's a good
be
point.
pretty dark at times. It definitely has that lighter tone and that kind of sense of completion at the end. Like the characters have changed,
Mm,
in a significant way.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I like that a lot. So great. Let's move on to The Man Who Wasn't There. This is one that I feel like is really underrated. I really like this movie.
Mm,
It's all black and white. It's a pretty simple story. Billy Bob Thornton, I really like him in the lead role. It's another one I've only seen once, but I remember really enjoying it, specifically the cinematography. I'm just a huge fan of
mm,
black and white, and for them to do a movie I think that was like 2001, two or three, somewhere in there, to do it all in black and white was kind of a bold move. So yeah, really big fan of that one. That was another one though that didn't gross very high. And
mm.
so but yeah, I really like that one. Have you had a chance to watch that one yet?
No, I saw it, the poster, and
Mm,
I really liked the style of the poster, and then obviously you can see it's in black and white, so I was like really
mhm.
drawn to that one.
Yeah,
But it wasn't streaming anywhere,
right.
so I diverted to another one that was free in the meantime.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But I do want to see that one.
Yeah, yeah, definitely worth checking out. Next, they did Intolerable Cruelty, which is sort of their most straightforward, I guess, rom-com, you could call it.
Mm,
It's a bit unique for a rom-com. It's got George Clooney back in the lead role, Catherine Zeta-Jones. This is one that I enjoy. It's just not, it doesn't stand out to me in any significant way.
mm,
So it doesn't rank very high for me on their filmography. I feel like
mm,
it's kind of their safest film in many ways. Even though it looks nice, it's well acted. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's just kind of not what I was expecting, I guess, from the Coens. I would expect it to be
mm.
more subversive and different or something. I don't know. I don't know. So it didn't land with me as well as a lot of the other ones. Have you seen that one?
No, I didn't. Like you mentioned, it being like a straightforward rom-com mostly. Did you think it had that underpinning of like a more dense, like you could see the pick up the story that they were telling behind the scenes, or they didn't really have that depth in the story?
I didn't feel it was there, and I didn't.
Hmm.
It's not very memorable. I've only seen it once, and it's been a couple years, so I can't even really
Okay.
remember specifics about the movie. But yeah, I just found it to be lacking in that area of storytelling and visually and all that other stuff. So yeah, so that one kind of fell by the wayside for me. I wouldn't mind rewatching it. After that, they did The Lady Killers. This is another one I have not seen. This is with Tom
I haven't
Hanks. So I'm
either.
very curious about it.
Oh, really?
But I think it's like a heist movie, if I remember right. But yeah, unfortunately, I've not had a chance to see it. After Intolerable Cruelty, which was a huge budget, 60 million, it did very well, made over 120 million. So I think that was their biggest hit to date.
Wow. Wow.
Lady Killers was a little bit of a lower budget, 35 million, made 76. So it was a pretty decent hit as well. But yeah, that's one that I could not find streaming anywhere, so I've not seen it. Have you watched that one, Josh?
No, no.
Okay. Moving on to No Country for Old Men. So this is based on a book by Cormac McCarthy. One of the few films, that's based on someone else's work. It's not an original screenplay that they've done. And this is fantastic. This is just next level filmmaking. I mean, it's really them kind of doing something they haven't really done, going, kind of back to Blood Simple, getting very serious again,
Hmm.
even more serious than that film is, and telling this, kind of neo-Western crime serial killer movie. I mean, essentially is what it is. So it's very dark, very intense. But as the title suggests, it kind of plays into that whole idea of, you know, unease about the future. It's kind of like that whole idea
Yeah.
of the evil that has come to this small Texas town. They're just not prepared for it. Tommy Lee Jones' character specifically, he's kind of at the center of it. He kind of frames the narrative, and he has that whole kind of monologue, about what would the old timers think of this?
Hmm.
How are we supposed to deal with this kind of stuff? And he's just kind of unprepared for it. And it's interesting because I was watching the behind the scenes and the Coens were talking about how Tommy Lee Jones is like the good guy. Obviously, Javier Bardem as Anton Chigurh is the bad guy. And then you have Josh Brolin, who's kind of in between. He's kind of like a morally gray character. Like he kind of gets caught up in the situation, does something he probably shouldn't do, and then kind of has to pay for it the rest of the movie, essentially. So it's a really just tightly wound narrative. It's so well shot. Again,
Oh, yeah.
Deakins is just it's a masterful cinematography here. And then all the performances are great too. Not just those three leads, but all the other actors in it are fantastic. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this movie. It's one that um, again, it's kind of can be hard to watch at times because there's such intensity and such brutal violence in it.
Hmm.
It's very real, that I don't watch it often, but when I do, I always do enjoy it. So, what do you think of this one, Josh?
So this is the one I chose to rewatch because I need to refresh on it
Right.
instead of watching the other one, the
Gotcha.
Proxy one. But I forgot for some reason I conflate in my mind this and Fargo, where I think that Tommy Lee Jones's character is talking to Frances McDormand's character at the end. I don't know why, but because they don't.
Right.
She's not even in this movie.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that was something I totally forgot. Like I forgot how the movie ended. I forgot
Mm,
which way it went. Like
yeah.
I remember pieces of. I think the furthest thing I remembered was like what happened to the money
Right.
with the at the bridge. I think that's the
Yeah.
farthest thing I remembered.
Okay.
But totally forgot about like the that uncertainty, like you said about the future, and I feel like that's a really strong theme here.
Yeah.
Is that just plays into it, and it almost is like debilitating for Tommy Lee Jones's character, which is I thought
Yeah.
was really interesting
It's
because
true.
like you said, he's the good guy and he's trying to catch the bad guy, but yeah, I guess spoiler warning. I just thought it was really interesting that kind of like he's almost just kind of like, well, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because I'm supposed to do it, but I like he just kind of seems I don't know, kind of like he mentions at the very end when he's talking to that other guy.
Right.
I guess he was the deputy,
Right.
where he's saying like I don't remember the right word, the exact word, but like outmatched. He said
Mm,
outmatched.
yeah.
I'm feeling outmatched by it,
Right.
and you could just see that take the toll it takes on his character, which is really interesting.
Yeah. It
Um,
is.
right from the beginning, with like the camera work and Josh Brolin and everything else, like Oh man, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
This is only the second time I've seen it, so I had
Okay.
forgotten. But yeah, this Javier Bardem's character is amazing in this.
Yeah.
I didn't know who he was until this movie,
Right.
and that kind of like anytime I see him in something now, I'm like, oh, Javier Bardem's in it. Um,
Yeah.
because he just does such a great job. But
Yes.
it's interesting because Oh Brother Where Art Thou was probably their most positive uh
Mm.
or like happy ending, so to speak. And this is
Hmm.
probably their most bleak, at least the ones
Yeah.
I've seen. Which
Yeah.
yeah, because I totally forgot how it ended, and it was like, oh, it does have that cyclical nature
Right.
where it kind of
Yes.
goes back to the way it was at the beginning.
Yep.
Which that was interesting. And then like, yeah, I was like, oh,
Yeah, I
okay,
remember that feeling of watching this for the first time, just being like, really? No, I don't want it to end
yeah.
that way. And but it's so like you said, when you understand that kind of circular storytelling they like, it makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting, some guys at our church were talking about this movie a couple weeks back, and um, we're like, is there any kind of hope there? Is there anything we can, what is the movie trying to say?
Hmm.
And if you look at Javier Bardem's character as Death, the movie actually
Oh,
is really interesting because
huh.
death comes for everyone, right? That's kind of the whole
Yeah.
thing. And so on top of the whole, like there's this evil now that we don't know how to handle or control or feel outmatched by, the previous generation having to deal with. There's also that other layer to it of like, yeah, death, it's inevitable. You can't stop it. There's no way, to avoid it.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of an interesting layer to the film as well.
Yeah. And what Woody Harrelson's character says to Josh Brolin's character when they're in the hospital, he says, "You saw him, and you're still alive, basically."
Right, right. Yeah, you
That's
escape death somehow. Yeah, it's
yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's kind of that whole idea.
That's
Yeah,
oh, I really like looking at that in that way. And it
yeah.
would be interesting. I have the book. I haven't read it yet.
Oh, yeah. I want
Um,
to read it too.
but it would be interesting seeing like you said, because like the cyclical nature and things and just
Hmm.
their style is so like their themes. They usually
Yep.
they repeat themes and they're very strong. So it'd be interesting
Hmm.
to see, did they select this because it also had those same themes, or did they
Right.
adapt that into it? Which, from what I know of, I read The Road by also by Cormac
Yes,
McCarthy.
one of my favorites.
So I can totally see that this is how the story went
Right,
in the
right.
book too.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think they changed much. So,
But
um,
so one other thing I liked about
yeah.
this movie is that I feel like it's kind of, because you don't always see how they don't over explain, like, oh, how
Mm,
did he find, how did they still find, like they might be
yes.
breadcrumbs they either drop or like a line they'll drop later.
Hmm.
But I feel like because of that, and just kind of like the, I don't know, the way it ends and everything else, it almost feels like a lot of like what Christopher Nolan's talked about Tenet, where it's an experience. Did you
Yeah,
experience the movie versus did you
right,
understand every single step?
right.
And I feel like
Yes.
that's what this movie is too. It's like you just experience it.
Yes, 100%. Completely agree. I love that. Yeah, that's really important to know because I feel like this could frustrate a lot of audience members who want, to know, wait, exactly how did that happen? What happened here? How did this? It's
Yeah.
not really about that. It's like you're saying about the feeling more than
Hmm.
the kind of understanding. So, yeah, great stuff. Let's move on to their next film, Burn After Reading. This is probably my least favorite. I was pretty disappointed by this movie. I watched it for the first time this week. All the stuff's there. I mean, it's, all their kind of quirky writing and it just the tone never quite worked because it's like a conspiracy spy comedy. It's very odd. I don't really know how to quite
Sounds like it would
characterize it.
work.
Yeah, I mean it works to a certain extent. I think just
Hmm.
the characters are so unlikable. I think that
Ah,
there's no redeeming quality to anyone in the
there's no
movie.
one to root for.
Yeah, there's no one to root for. Even the guy that you're with in the beginning, John Malkovich, is in this, who I like a lot, and
Oh,
but he
wow.
he plays a jerk very well, and he does that here as well. And it's just like, you kind of want to be with him initially because of what happens
Huh.
to him and what he's going through, but yeah, just the way he handles it is just not great. And Frances McDormand is in this, and Didn't really like her character. George Clooney, who I always like, he's very unlikable in this too. And even
Mm.
Brad Pitt, he's kind of just, and they're all kind of very dumb. They're very stupid, like just
Ah.
idiotic kind of characters.
Hmm.
That makes for some funny moments, but I feel like when you try to go for that too often, it just ends up falling flat. So by the
Yeah,
end, I was kind of just bored and done.
yeah, I feel like you can get away with like one, maybe two characters that are like that if they're gonna
Right,
stay, if that's their character.
right.
I feel like you can do that with like maybe one or two, but to have like most of the characters be that way, I feel like it would be
Yep.
like it'd be really hard to pull it off.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't quite pull it off for me here. So this is to me, this is their weakest film. It's a $37 million budget, grossed 163 though, so I mean it made a lot of money. I think mostly probably due to the cast, being such a big
Mm,
popular
yeah,
cast.
and
Um,
coming off of No Country for Old Men.
and coming off of No Country, exactly. And it's again another one of those interesting things where it's like No Country for Old Men, and then this is like a totally different tone.
Mm,
And so yeah, it's interesting to see how they go back and forth between those. But you have not seen this from what I'm gathering. Okay. Moving on, their next film was A Serious Man. This is the other film of theirs I have not seen. So it's very critically acclaimed, very low budget, only 7 million, gross 31. And I want to say it was another one that was at least it got a couple nominations at the Academy Awards. So
mm,
I'm curious about it. It looks like a very simple kind of character study, but I have
yeah.
not seen that one. Of you?
No, no,
Okay.
this is another one. It's interesting because just looking at the poster, it reminds me of Miller's Crossing in
Hmm.
that sort of like we have no money and we made a movie kind of thing.
Yeah, right, right.
So that's interesting, like this late in the game that they're making a movie that at least, I mean, not to judge a book by its cover, but at least has that aesthetic, if you will, to it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that is interesting. Moving on from that to True Grit. True Grit, another film they made based on someone else's work, the novel True Grit. It was also made into a film previously, back in
Mhm.
1969, famously starring John Wayne as Rooster Cogburn. That role is taken over by Jeff Bridges here. We've got Matt Damon, and they're collaborating with Josh Brolin again. This
Mhm.
was Haley Steinfeld's breakout role back when she was, I think, 14 or 15. Incredible performances across the
Oh yeah.
board. This movie, like each of these actors, just totally inhabits their characters. You just see them on screen. You don't see the actors at all, which is incredible, I think, for actors this popular, to do
Mm.
that. But this is their first true Western, right? I mean, they're really going back, like this is a period piece in the 1800s. The costumes, the production design, the sets, all of it just look fantastic. I mean, it really does look very good. Another one shot by Roger Deakins.
Mm.
This might be my favorite cinematography of his ever. I mean, just some of the shots are gorgeous, very memorable imagery. And again, like you were mentioning with the music, I feel like it's the perfect marriage of all that. Like the
Yeah.
writing, the acting, the visual element, the musical element, it all just comes together in such a way to make something that's one of a kind. It just feels like nothing else. Feels it's really crazy because for two movies based on the same material,
Hmm.
and even though, even certain lines of dialogue are the same, it just feels totally different from that original movie. It really does set itself apart. And so I'm a huge fan of this film. I'm a huge fan of Westerns in general. And this is one of my
Hmm.
favorite all-time Westerns. So of course it's one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies as well. I've talked about it before at length. So anything you want to mention about True Grit?
Yeah, I say I've also we probably talked about it at length on the same podcast. I don't remember,
Right.
but
Yeah, you're right.
so you said their first true Western. So is that because it's the time period setting, whereas No Country for Old Men is more of a neo Western?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, more the
Oh, okay.
period. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, just same thing you said. This blew me away the first time I saw it. I hadn't seen the original at the time.
Hmm.
Um, so I'll I guess comment more on that when we get to where it's placed in my ranking. But
Sure.
yeah, truly phenomenal. This is one of the one of the two 5-star films that I have from their filmography, and maybe the first one I owned.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, just completely blew me away.
Yeah.
Um, No
It's
pun
a great
intended.
film. Right. Moving on to their next film, Inside Llewyn Davis. This is the other Criterion film that they have in the
Mm,
Criterion collection. Um,
pick that up then.
Another unique movie. It's interesting because this is a very specific time and place, right? It's, 60s Greenwich
Yes.
Village, New York,
Yes, very
folk
much so.
scene. It's like how more specific can you get? So it's really a specific kind of feel to it too. This is one that's not shot by Deakins. It's shot by a guy named what's his name? Bruno Del Bonell.
Hmm.
And he just has this really cool, soft, desaturated, like look to it. It has this kind of
Yes, yes.
lot of interesting lighting, like very like single light sources a lot. It's just very different type of feeling film from a visual perspective, which I really like when they
Hmm.
mix it up like that. I mean, I would say work with Deakins every time, but you know, it's cool to see different cinematographers come in and like do something very different, especially when you're telling a specific story like this. So I really like the visuals, performances again. I feel like all the actors in their movies deliver just some of their best, like True Grit. Like I feel
Hmm.
like that might be all of those actors' best movie, but performances. And it's the same thing
That's
for
a
this
fair
one. I feel
statement.
like Oscar Isaac has never been better than he is
Oh
here.
yeah.
Carey Mulligan is fantastic. Justin Timberlake, like, even John Goodman shows up.
Hmm.
Garrett Hedlund shows up. There's such a great
Yes.
cast, and they're all just really playing their parts very well, very immersive from the performance standpoint. It is loosely based on folk music legend Dave Van Ronk,
Hmm.
who was very popular in Greenwich Village at the time and was kind of overshadowed after Bob Dylan came on the scene, which is what the movie kind of
Huh.
shows. So Oscar Isaac's kind of loosely playing that real life person. And he kind of goes
Who's
on this journey. It's really interesting. Again, they have the full circle thing, like literally the
yeah,
first and last
yeah.
scenes are the same basically. In the middle of the movie, it kind of becomes a road movie a little bit, as he's kind of trying to make it in the music industry. So it's just got a lot of interesting elements to it that are very different. This is one of their most unique movies just from a storytelling standpoint, from
Hmm.
a character standpoint. He's again one of these characters that's very stuck. He's very stubborn. He doesn't really want to do what it takes to become a big, musician. And you kind of respect him for that in a certain sense, but at the same time, you're like, this guy's kind of being, a jerk about it at the same
Hmm.
time. He's not a very likable character, but he's, I think, relatable enough to where it's
Yes.
you don't hate him the whole time, you
Hmm.
know. So I think that's a really tricky balance that they nailed
That's
here.
a good point.
So that's great. Of course, the music, T-Bone Burnett comes back and he worked with Mumford and Sons and all these other guys. Oscar Isaac did all of his own singing and playing throughout the film,
Incredible.
which is great. He had played guitar since I think he was like 12, but he really like went hardcore into it, went for this film and just did a great job. This Criterion edition is incredible because has a commentary, has a conversation between Guillermo del Toro and the Coen brothers, which is
Oh,
really cool.
whoa.
And then it
Okay.
has an entire 43-minute documentary on the making of the film, and then a 101-minute concert, which is all the people that
Oh,
collaborated on the film, and I think even some additional people put on this big
I heard
concert
about
in New
that.
York City, which is really, really cool. It's honestly, it's worth buying just for that. So yeah, it's a great, great Criterion edition I have here. But yeah, another favorite of mine. I play guitar. I've played guitar for over
Hmm.
20 years, and so I'm a big fan of any kind of music related films, and this is certainly one of my favorites. It just feels so real,
Hmm.
and I really, really enjoy watching it. So, what do you think of Llewyn Davis?
I think this is another one, like you said, with True Grit, where all the elements came together
Mm.
just
Mhm.
perfectly.
Mhm.
Because, like, just from the very beginning,
Yeah,
with the camera shots, it opens on him singing in the yeah, yeah, it opens with him singing in the
in the bar. Yeah,
yes, in the bar, the aptly named bar,
right.
which I forget the name of at this moment, but um, yeah, and just from like that opening, the camera shots, uh, the closeness of the shot, the like that you get that level of intimacy
Yeah.
with Oscar Isaac's character and the song like right off the bat, and him
Right.
singing and really playing, and you're like, I was like, I was like, holy cow! I think just immediately I was like, I'm in, I'm on
Yeah.
board with this. This is
Yeah.
awesome.
Absolutely.
So it just immediately captured me right from the beginning,
Hmm.
and I was just like 100% in the whole time. It was I knew you had said good things about it before, and I didn't watch it the first time you recommended it to me, but I got to see it this time, and I was completely blown away.
Great.
Um, and like you said, everyone does a fantastic job. I didn't even
Mm.
recognize Justin Timberlake. I don't know
Yeah.
what it if it's like the different beard thing he had going on that
Right.
made his face look a little different.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like I was like, wait, is that? And then I looked it up, and it was. But at
Yeah.
first I was like, didn't know. I didn't realize that was him.
Right. Right.
Um, and then Adam Driver makes a surprise appearance.
Right.
That was really cool. That was
Yeah.
that Kennedy song was it was weird in
Yeah.
their like perfectly weird style, but it was
Right.
really fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Very 60s like space race song, which is great.
Yeah, very much an earworm.
Right.
I am actually recalling it right now.
Yeah. Yep.
um, but yeah, everything just worked, and like you
Mm.
said, he's likable enough. I feel like it's so interesting because his character is like you're rooting for the guy because you want him to make it big. And
Yeah.
obviously, I think uh, this was probably intentional, starting out with the song, because in doing that, you see you're like, oh, he's good, and it's
Hmm.
not just like, oh, this guy, and then we haven't heard him yet, but he keeps saying he's good. Like I feel like if they did that, the
Yeah.
moments where he's a jerk would sour our taste of him,
Good
and
point.
we probably wouldn't root for him. But
Yep.
because he is like you said, it balances that like his talent with
Mm.
him struggling
Right.
in different areas of his life, and also with him being a jerk
Yeah.
at certain points. I don't know. It just balances really well where you like you're rooting for the guy, and then you're sad for the guy, and then you like
Mm.
don't like the guy, and
Right.
they really balance that really well in the film. And I don't know, it's a tragedy. The
Yeah.
film's I would say the film, if it was a Shakespeare play, I'd say the film was which they do later. I would say
Right.
the film is a tragedy,
Yes. Yes. I
but
agree.
a
I
really
agree.
really good and moving and personal one. Probably their most not like personal to them, I don't know, but
Mm.
like as far as like you and the character, I feel like
Right.
this is the most personal uh one-on-one or whatever that you get with the character in their films.
Yes. Yes. Good point. Good point. Moving on to Hail Caesar,
Mm.
was our next film. This is a kind of cool throwback to old Hollywood, big
Yes.
budget productions. It's a fun movie. It's not, I wouldn't say it's like the must-see Coen Brothers movie
Mm.
necessarily. It's not ranked super high for me, but it's one that I did really enjoy when I watched it, especially if you're a movie fan, you're going to get a lot out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Brolin, of course, comes back. He's great, very unique performance for him. Scarlett Johansson's wonderful there. Really, really good cast, big ensemble cast. Channing
Yeah.
Tatum, plays to a lot of his strengths as a performer, which is fun. So yeah, I liked it. It's not one that like stands out in my mind in a big way, but it's interesting and it's fun, and I'd like to rewatch it. But I don't
Mhm.
have a whole lot to say about it because it was again, it kind of, I didn't feel like, even though it definitely has their writing sensibilities, the kind of quirky nature of it, and kind of different, but it's one that I'd like to rewatch. Do you have a lot to say about Hail Caesar, or what do you think of it?
Not a ton. I was really taken with it when I first saw
Mm.
it.
Hmm.
And that's still, I say that in past tense, but it's still true.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think this was, I don't know, maybe the first, I don't know, I've seen a handful of films that are like a filmmaker or filmmakers in this case, kind of ode to classic Hollywood.
Right.
And between this one and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Mm.
and probably Mank as well. But like, there's a handful of them, modern ones anyway, that are kind of like that throwback to that era. And
Right.
any of the I maybe not Mank so much, but the other one, this one and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I really
Mm.
like, and I really like that idea of like throwback to classic Hollywood, and just it has that like I don't know, it makes me smile. It just like
Right.
that, I don't know, the fun of classic Hollywood, and just, I don't know. Obviously it's not perfect, and there's as much bad back then as there is now, kind of thing. But
Right.
I don't know, just has that kind of, that almost that magical sense, that sense of
Yeah.
magic to it, kind of
Yes,
thing,
I
with
agree.
the magic of movie making. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I really liked that, and I liked the wackiness of the story. Like when
Right.
Channing Tatum just starts dancing and singing, I'm like, what is this movie? This is great.
Right.
It's so weird, but I love it.
Yes.
Um, and so no, I really enjoyed it. Maybe like towards the end, or as the third act is starting to go, I'm like, where the story kind of seems to like kind of teeter a bit, maybe,
Yeah.
with George Clooney's character.
Mm.
But I don't know. Overall, I really enjoy it, and it's cool to see as well, because it gives you a perspective on how movies were made back then.
Right. Right.
So you kind of get to see it in action, which I really
Yes.
like, as well. And I think this movie, actually, this and No Country for Old Men, I can probably credit the Coen, between those two movies. I can probably credit the Coens with me liking Josh Brolin as much as I do.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. It's great. Next one they did was The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. This is a Netflix film. And it's a lot of fun. It's kind of one of those anthology movies, so there's a bunch of short films kind of um, all included here. Each of them I like. I really did
mhm,
enjoy every single one. The James Franco one was a lot of fun. The Liam Neeson one was kind of hard to watch, but also, really interesting and engaging. And
mhm,
the title one with Tim Blake Nelson, Buster Scruggs, that one was just really fun to watch too. So a lot of good ones that stood out. Again, I enjoyed each of them, and they each kind of have a different kind of little moral lesson, I guess, that could be learned through each
mhm,
one, which is kind
mhm,
of fun. So yeah, it's kind of them returning to the Western genre, but doing it in kind of a more of like a folk tale. It has like that. It's almost like True Grit meets A Brother Where Art Thou, like in a
mm,
lot of ways. I
mhm.
feel like it
Yeah,
has that
yeah.
combination, and some of them are pretty dark and intense, but usually they're kind of more darkly comedic. And so yeah, I'm a huge fan of that movie that Netflix just gave them a blank check. I don't Netflix doesn't usually reveal budget, so I don't know how much it costs to make. I'm sure
Mm,
it costs
hmm,
something
interesting.
significant, but unfortunately, I only got a very limited theatrical release. But I'm glad I can watch it anytime on Netflix at least. Did you enjoy Buster Scruggs?
Yeah, I did. A friend recommended it to me, that and Ex Machina,
Mm,
and so I was like, and he's like he was like a big movie buff, and
hmm.
so I was like, okay, let me watch these, and so I obviously saw Ex Machina as well, but I really enjoyed both of them, but probably
Yeah,
Ex Machina more.
yeah,
But it's such an interesting story, because like you said, it's those different stories that are all together. And at the time, I didn't like, I knew, I could sense a bit of, I was like on the perimeter of trying figuring out what the connecting piece through them all was, or that there was a connecting element between them all.
right.
But I want to revisit it, because I just watched. I forgot what half of the scenes were, or half of the
Yeah,
stories were. I could remember the obviously the title one, and James Franco's, and Tom Waits's, but I couldn't
yeah.
remember what the other ones were. And so I watched the trailer again,
Mm,
and and remembered. But they in that one, and the way they do the trailer, is with the guy in the coach talking
yeah,
about, I forget exactly what he's saying, but he's talking about stories and things like that. And
right.
the way they piece the trailer together with that and the music, they kind of like showed how that's kind of, at least on a trailer perspective, without like seeing in depth into each of the stories. That's kind of like a surface level of all the connecting things,
Hmm.
like the rhythm of it, and like kind of like you said, where it like goes back to folk stories.
Right.
Like that's kind of a connecting piece to it too.
Yep.
And so I this is one I definitely want to rewatch, and one that you can rewatch in like little pieces,
Yep.
because
Yep.
it is segmented like that, which may not help for understanding the overall story, but at
Hmm.
least if you can't sit down and watch it all at once, you can at least pick it up as you go, and like episodically anyway.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I think James Franco's is my favorite. Do you have a favorite out of the, was it like six of them? Six
It's tough.
choices?
Yeah, I like that. I like the Tom Waits one a lot too, though. I think
Mm.
that one is really well done.
Very visually arresting.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah, that one probably is my favorite. Great. Let's move on to their well, this is not one that they actually both collaborated on, but you did mention it, so I wanted to bring it up. The Tragedy of Macbeth. That was actually
Mhm.
all Joel writing, directing, and producing.
Mm. Oh,
Ethan was not
Ethan didn't do
involved. Yeah.
anything?
Yeah. Ethan was
Whoa.
not involved in that one. So we can talk about it. I haven't seen it, unfortunately. I really wanted to see it. Um, it's black and white. It's Denzel
Mhm.
Washington. I mean, it's like it sounds so cool. Have you seen it and what did you think?
Yeah, so I saw it. I got a chance to see it during the very limited release that it had, because it's Apple Music. Actually, it's A24 as well,
Oh,
which was, I don't remember where in the timeline that I saw this in relation to like knowing who A24 was, but I think it was somewhere
right.
around. It was very close, I think, to the release of Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, okay.
And so the reason, like my ambition to go see it was, I think, tied to that as well,
Hmm.
and just kind of like, oh, it's A24, and anyway, and just the aesthetic of the film, like it
Yeah.
looks really cool. Like you said, it's in black and white, and
Hmm.
I was trying to uh, read Macbeth because I
Hmm.
haven't ever read the Shakespeare play, and I didn't realize going into it that it's in the original Shakespearean language.
Hmm.
Like they don't modernize it at all,
Right.
at least not to my knowledge. So, needless to say, not living back then and not having read it, I was a little lost at several points. I'm like, I don't know what's going on.
Right.
I kind of, I know the gist, I know the overall story, but as far as like certain things, I was like, yeah, I'm at a loss in this scene. I'm not following.
Hmm.
Just because some of his language is not common language nowadays, or they'll
Right.
use it in
Right.
a different way than we do
Hmm.
now, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I was trying to go read it, and actually, there's a really cool manga edition
Hmm.
I forget what company did it, but they've made like several Hamlet and Macbeth and Midsummer's Night Dream, I think, of adaptations with the original language. So that's cool to see it in a drawn way, because you're just reading a script. It's not the original way it's supposed to be portrayed. You're supposed to see a play of it. So at least the manga would be a little closer to that.
Right.
But I didn't get. I ultimately wasn't able to do that in time.
Hmm.
But from what I remember when I saw the Tragic Macbeth, it was visually stunning.
Hmm.
It's in black and white, and it is in a more of a full screen format. I don't know the exact aspect ratio, but it's more full screen as opposed to widescreen, so it's
Hmm.
taller. It may be
Right.
IMAX. I don't know. It could just
Oh,
be all
okay.
IMAX. But yeah, visually it was really cool. The trailer, they don't give a ton of. There's like a couple lines where you can catch the, oh, it's like Shakespearean, but I didn't realize it was in full Shakespeare. So I will definitely have to revisit this one after the fact. But from what I understood, it was really, really well done.
Cool. Excellent. Great. Okay, well, that's it for the Coen brothers filmography. Now, we're going to reveal our top five Coen brothers movies. So, they've done so many movies, so many different types of movies. It'll be interesting to see which ones each of us gravitate towards. Josh, do you want to kick us off with your number five?
Yes. So number five for me is going to be "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Oh, okay. Great. Great. Yeah, that's a good one. Again, we've already talked extensively about these, so we don't have to go into too much detail.
Mhm.
But is there a specific thing that stands out to you about this movie that makes it a top five? Is it just the overall experience, or what would you
I
say?
think it is. Yeah, I think you. That's a good point. I think it is the overall experience, because
Yeah.
actually up until the second, when I said which one it was, I had Ballad of Buster Scruggs for at number five,
Oh, okay.
and as I was looking at that, I was like, no, I got to put "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" first. And I think you're right. It's because it's that experience, and
Mm,
uh, I don't know, just the various odd elements that all work together in a really, like I said, kind of infamous for this movie kind of
hmm.
way.
Right.
And I don't know, that music is just
Yeah.
stunning. So,
Yeah. It is great. Great stuff. All right. Well, my number five is another music related one. It's Inside Llewyn Davis.
ah,
So that's what ended up at number five for me. This is a really tough top five. They're all so good.
mhm.
I know that I think all the top four are five-star movies. So this is very close to being a five-star movie for me. It's 4.5 stars. It's excellent. Again, I like the specificity of the time and place,
Mhm.
and the characters. Cast is fantastic. It's another one of those soundtracks that I've not only listened to multiple times, I've learned to play many of these songs on
Oh,
guitar because I
really?
just really enjoy all the music. I was playing some
That's
of them
cool.
last night. And so, yeah, it's really, really good, really fun movie, enjoyable movie, really unique visual style. Them
Hmm.
working with a different cinematographer is just really, really cool. And it just has so many great moments throughout it. So, yeah, and this Blu-ray, like I mentioned, if you don't have it and you're a fan of the movie, it's like a must buy. It is so,
Yeah, I need
so
to pick that
good.
up.
Yeah, all the bonus features are just fantastic. So, highly recommend it. That one is my number five. Josh, on to you and your number four.
So my number four, I have No Country for Old Men.
So do I. That's my number
Oh,
four.
nice. And I think for me this one probably higher if the ending was different. But from the moment,
Sure.
like spoiler, from the moment they like off screen kill off Josh Brolin's character, which was
Right.
like a radical decision. We didn't really talk
Yeah,
about that, but I feel like
true.
that could have derailed the entire movie. But I
Right.
feel like because of the way they shifted focus onto Tommy Lee Jones's character,
Right.
and I don't know, just something about the way they handled that, and the way
Yep.
they kind of brought you slowly down
Mm-hmm.
is it just flowed really well nicely, and it wasn't like, wait, what happened? Like you kind of
Right.
are for a second, but
Yeah.
they that descent or that coming off of that moment
Mm.
they handled so well,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yep.
didn't ruin the rest of the movie for me. But I think overall, because it still is like, oh, the bad guy got away, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that it's at number four, whereas it may be higher, would have been higher otherwise, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great movie. Again, as layered and deep as anything they've done. A
Hmm.
five-star movie. Again, cinematography, fantastic use of music. The way they build the tension throughout it
Oh my
is just
gosh,
fantastic. So,
I think that's
yeah,
I think that's their most, like, at least of the nine I've seen. This is the movie where building the tension is like it's just so strong. There's
it
so many
is.
moments,
Yeah.
and sometimes they take the punch and go action on it, and sometimes they
Right.
don't. But you still had
Yep.
all that tension that they
Mm-hmm.
built up.
Mm-hmm.
I think they like that element of their filmmaking is on display full force in this film.
100%. And the attention to detail and the a realism
Mm,
is just it's like fully there. I fully just
yes,
believe and buy into it. All the decisions the characters make,
yes,
everything. It just really, really works very well. So
I agree.
yeah, excellent, excellent filmmaking. Let's jump to your number three.
So for number three, I have Hail Caesar,
Oh,
and
really? Okay.
that's just
Cool.
because of it's just like such a kind of like what I said earlier, a throwback to classic Hollywood, kind of
Yeah.
little zany,
Right.
and just great characters, and I don't know, just so many likable characters too. Like
Right.
even the westerns, I forget the actor's name, the guy who played
Yeah, Alden
Han Solo,
Ehrenreich.
young
Yep.
Solo. Yes,
Yeah.
even that, and him and Ray Fiennes' interaction, like it's
Yes.
just so much fun in this movie that it's
Yeah.
just like so much of it just makes me smile that I just really enjoy it.
Good. That's one I definitely want to revisit because, like I said, I remember enjoying it. I just don't remember a ton
Mhm.
about it. And so I definitely want to watch it again. We might should do a podcast about like modern movies about old Hollywood or something like that. That would
Mm.
be fun because you mentioned Mank. I'm a big fan of Mank. I know you don't like it as much as I do.
Mhm.
And I don't like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as much as you do. So that would be a fun
Ooh, I like that.
conversation.
That
I
would
think
be
that could be a fun
good.
podcast. We'll have to make
Good
a note of
excuse
that.
to watch those again.
Right, exactly. So cool. All right. Well, that was a great number three. My number three is 1994's The Hudsucker Proxy.
Mm.
Again, just watched it for the first time. Can't wait to add it to the collection. Big budget movie they made, kind of with all the clout they had coming off of Barton Fink. And
Mm.
man, it just, again, a fun throwback to all these classic, films that I'm a big fan of,
Mhm.
in their own kind of unique way, that I just found to be a lot of fun and really, really well made. It's great. The stunning production design. It's got that kind of Art Deco feel. It all takes place in the 50s, and it's kind of just
Mm.
really, really unique and fun. Kind of a satire on, big business and journalism and,
Mm.
sensationalism and all that kind of stuff. It's a really cool mix of different
Mm.
things that I think works really well. So yeah, that's Hudsucker Proxy, which also, of course, was shot by Roger Deakins. So has
Was
has
that
a great visual style.
was that
That
the
was
first one he did with
it
them?
might have been. It was up there. If it wasn't the first, it was one of the first for sure. I'll
Okay.
have to look into that. But yeah, that might have been their first collaboration with him.
Okay. And I didn't
Uh,
mention it earlier, but actually, you mentioned this is like a huge expansion of their budget, and
yeah.
that it's all on screen, which I think is a testament to their talent as filmmakers. Because like so often you'll see, and maybe, and this isn't like something we would see today, where a director is thrusted into a blockbuster film like a Star Wars
Right.
or a Marvel project. It's not necessarily that same
Right.
dynamic, but it's like a hugely increased budget uh, for that time for them.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's cool to see that they didn't flounder in the wake of all that money, that they were still able to put it all to use and make a good film instead of being overwhelmed by it, like sometimes we
Exactly.
see.
Right, right. Yeah, I feel like yeah, a lot of directors would be overwhelmed by it. It would maybe take the focus off the story and the characters and onto
Hmm.
what's going on in the background and the big, elaborate
Hmm.
stuff going on, but all of it plays into the story. Like this is one that again, they had been working on this story, I think even
Hmm.
before Blood Simple. Like they had come
Oh,
up with kind
okay.
of this idea with Sam Raimi as they were kind of young filmmakers,
Ah.
before they had become, big directors. So yeah, it had been an idea that had been kind of percolating for a long time. And so they were able to really hone in on, okay, here's the script, here's what we're doing. And, again, very, very visionary filmmakers. They
Hmm.
really exactly knew what they wanted. And so,
That's
and
cool.
yeah, it's all on display there, which is really fun. Um, all right, so that was my number three. Let's move on to your number two.
So my number two is True Grit.
Nice.
And I think for between this and my number one, this was I think the rewatching the original, or I should say, watching the original for the first time and then
Mm,
rewatching this one, I think it like took the new one down a notch. Not in
mm,
any, not like it's deficient or anything, because it's
right.
like everything we said about it before was true. It's a
Yeah.
phenomenal film, but I
Right.
think because it is the remake of the original one,
Mm,
and the original one is itself so good that
right.
kind of I don't know, like not in a yeah, not in a negative way toward the other one. The new one, they're
Hmm.
just both so good that
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe it made the new one less unique in my mind because it is
Right.
a redoing.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it except that
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal film.
Right.
But the new one, or the original John Wayne one, is also excellent, which kind of
Right.
just lowered it a bit, but it's still
Gotcha.
amazing.
Sure. Sure. Great. Well, my number two is another one from your top five. It's Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Ah.
Which again, I have I just actually just noticed to have the soundtrack here on my desk as well. So
Oh, nice.
there it is. Yeah, just a great, great movie in every regard. It really, is one of those that I can watch anytime. It's one of those
Mm.
sort of fun movies to just sit back and enjoy.
Hmm.
Um, I'm a Dapper Dan man. There's it is right there.
Oh my gosh.
It's got all kinds of cool pictures in it.
I wonder what it
Um,
smelled like.
yeah, I know, right? I
They
wondered that
talk
too.
about that in the film, and
Yeah,
I was it even a real product? I don't know.
right.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be interesting. So yeah, great movie. Just again, stunning visually. It's another one of those that I feel like is very unique visually. The
Hmm.
use of lighting, a lot of it's on location,
Mm.
shooting, and it's just great. It's great. It does transports you to another time and place, and has that again, all of the Coen brothers, what makes them unique, that unique writing style, odd characters, all of it just works here really well, and as they pull it off exceedingly well.
So I noticed. Well, first of all, I knew it was probably because it's in the original in Homer's Odyssey. But like every time the cops would come up, they would say the same exact thing, and I thought that was so funny.
Right.
Like you said, this is probably one of the funniest ones they've done. But
Yes.
something I caught, and probably because we're watching like their movies in a closer amount of time.
Right.
But I noticed someone in the film, I think it was actually, I think it was Pete. He said "Hell's Bells," and then and whatever else he said after that. But
Right.
in No Country for Old Men, the other sheriff or the deputy says "Hell's Bells," blah blah blah, when they first come
Right.
on the scene. And so I
Yeah.
was like, wait, they're using I like. Did you have you noticed that they say that in any of their other films? Because I didn't think about, I wasn't paying attention to it until I heard it back to back in those two movies, and I was like, wait a second.
Yeah,
Like,
I can't.
is that like a random line that they'll throw in their movies, or is just happen to be in these two?
I
I
think
don't know.
I don't recall it being in anything else.
It would be
Um,
such like a throwaway line where you
yeah,
wouldn't even think to
right.
recognize it as a repeated line unless you had seen it, unless you'd seen their films back
Yeah,
to back and
yeah,
heard it. But I
right.
just
No,
thought
I
that was
didn't.
interesting
Yeah, I
that
didn't
they
notice anything else like that when I
they both said
rewatched
such a
their
unique
films. But
phrase.
yeah, it is. It is. So that's funny. I'm sure there's got to be things like that. I'm sure if I watch some of them again, I would notice. But yeah, that's funny that you picked up on that. On to our number ones.
Mm.
So, Josh, what is your all-time favorite Coen Brothers movie?
So with one watch, it is far and above. I don't know about far and above, but for sure inside Llewyn Davis.
Nice. Great
Just
pick.
totally taken with it. Like I said, right from the bat,
Yeah.
and yeah, just totally on board and captured by the magic of folk music, I guess,
Yeah,
and
it
Oscar
is.
Isaac's performance.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all the performances, like I said, are just so great, layered, nuanced, feel like real people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Real problems and things they go through. Like not everything
yes,
that happens in the movie, I like would like. Oh yeah, I support you in your decision, obviously,
right.
but it's yeah, it's I don't know. It's a very personal story.
Well, yeah, and I love that they put the cat on the box here because it is like a big part of this movie in a way.
Yes,
Like,
that was so fascinating to see
yeah,
the cat's
his
Pearl.
journey. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
journey. It was so interesting. Like, and then yeah, and then
And it's
heaven.
one of those things that I feel
Um,
is relatable, but also endearing. Like it's
mm,
one of those things that makes you like Lewin because he's
yes,
trying to help, this cat.
yeah.
It's like,
He's
um,
not a complete jerk. Like he's only
yeah,
a I don't know. I guess spoilers again, but he's only a jerk when like everything all the pain and hurt in his life is it wound up in I forget his friend's name, Mike,
yeah,
in
right.
Mike's death, which
Yep,
is and that's kind of what gives the story so much depth as well as and such
100%. Yep.
personal depth to the character.
Hmm.
And every it seems like every that is what he's stuck on.
Yep.
That is the thing he can't get past, and that is the
Hmm.
thing that he hasn't fully processed through, and uh, that's the open wound he still carries.
Right.
Because, like in the scene at the and I love their show don't tell in this movie
Mm.
aspects, but in the
Yeah.
scene when he goes over to Mike's parents' house, who we just
Mm.
think it's another friends of his that he's bumming off of,
Right.
but that are so graciously allowing him to stay there. But then we find
Yeah.
out it's his parents,
Right.
and uh, and that moment where the mom starts singing, who also has a beautiful voice, and
Right.
then he just reacts so
Yeah.
viscerally.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. It's so interesting, and like all of his, I feel like all of his jerk moments of being a jerk are spurred on from that, or like
Hmm.
they're grounded in that place of hurt that he still
Right.
has in his life over Mike's death.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, grief and loss definitely is a huge thing
Mm.
that's kind of happening. I guess you could say in the background
Yeah, yeah.
of the film, but yeah, it is certainly a big part of what his character is going through. So yeah, excellent choice. I can't fault you for it. Like I said, it's right up there in my top five too. So great pick. If we're doing soundtracks, it's probably my number. That and Oh Brother Where Art Thou are like right neck and
Yes,
neck for
yes.
me. So um, all right, on to my number one. If you haven't guessed already, it is True
Ah,
Grit from 2010. One of my favorite movies ever, honestly. It's probably it might be in my top 20 of all time.
oh
It's
wow,
just
that's cool.
to me, it's a perfect Western. It's a perfect
Oh yeah.
character journey. I love the character dynamics and how
Mm-hmm.
you're following Maddie, like she's the lead, and then how Rooster comes into the story and the way they play off each other.
Mm-hmm.
They're just such opposite characters. One of those great like odd couple pairings. I love that when movies do that. Just pit two characters together that are so opposed to each other, like in personality and demeanor. And then bringing in, LaBeouf with Matt Damon, and he adds a totally different element to it. Josh Brolin is fantastic. Josh Brolin is so good as this just mean bad guy. Um,
It's almost a
and
cameo performance too.
it's a very small role, but he makes a big impact on the film,
Yes.
as does Barry Pepper as the leader of the gang. He does a great job too. It's just
Yes. Yes.
all of the actors in it, just again, they feel very authentic. It really
That's a good
feels
word.
like you're in the Old West with them. And again, that has to do with the costumes. I watched they have really good bonus features on here. They're kind of
Oh.
short featurettes on like,
Hmm.
the costumes, one on the weapons, one on the casting, one on the
Okay.
cinematography, one on Charles Portis, who's the author of the original
Oh.
novel. So great bonus features on this, but um, yeah, it's again, like I said before, every element of it, you can tell like the amount of passion that went into it
Mhm.
is just it's all there on screen, and it's like one of those great um, stories of again redemption and justice. Is obviously a big theme that they're dealing with, and all of it. So yeah, every element of it just works beautifully. As you mentioned, the hymns playing in the background that I've,
Yeah.
heard my whole life in church and all of that and the way they play into the story and all of it. It's just fantastic. So to your point about the original, I'm a big fan of the original too. I'm a huge John Wayne fan. I like all of his
Mhm.
movies, but I almost think the fact that the original is so good makes this movie better because
Mm.
the fact that I like this movie more than that is
Yes.
kind of amazing when you think
It's a
about it. Like,
testament to this film.
exactly. It's like they took a great movie and made it better. Like how is that even possible? Like
Mm.
I don't know how many times this has happened. We did a remake podcast, right?
Hmm.
So not very many.
No.
We kind of mentioned our few favorites. Um, but yeah, this is one of those that takes a great movie and just elevates everything about it. So yeah, I'm a huge fan. Watched it many, many times and will continue to.
Yeah.
So yeah, that made my number one.
And I think maybe why, because you mentioned like the music and everything as well, and it made me think. I think the reason why maybe that the like the watching the older one for the first time had that effect on my view of the newer one is because I think one thing they really nailed in the original was, I mean, they also had a good uh, use of songs. I forget the guy who played the cowboy is the one who's or who played the Matt Damon's character is the
Yeah,
one who was
yeah.
singing.
Glenn Campbell. Yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
But I think the main part that really captured me about that movie was John Wayne and then the actress who plays Maddie is
Mm,
their relationship. They get really well. Like I feel like almost, and again, this is Haley Steinfeld's debut, and she
right.
did a phenomenal job. But
Yeah.
I think I almost like the actress who played that character in the original one, that performance or that relationship, the dynamic. I think I maybe like it a little bit better. But I
Okay.
think that's probably why.
Right.
Um, but like you said, with the music and everything in this one, like
Mm,
it's a like I'm looking at the dynamic of those two characters in the original one, but for the
right.
new one, it's the overall picture.
Right.
It's
Sure.
it's like you said, that perfect blend of all of the elements, writing, music,
Hmm.
acting, everything that all comes
Hmm.
together, and cinematography, and that works
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
well. So I think that's maybe what did it in the for me for the original one. But to your point, like everything is
Yeah.
fantastic about like all the movie making elements are fantastic about the new one.
Yeah.
So that is a good way to actually thank you. So that way, actually, that kind of reframes the way
Yeah.
I thought about it for both these movies. So thank you.
Great. Great. Awesome. Cool, man. Well, we're all done. Thank you again so much for joining us on episode 83 of the Real World Podcast, our favorite Coen Brothers movies. Hopefully, you learned a little bit about these filmmakers. We want to know what your favorites are in the comments. So make sure
Yes.
you leave a comment with your favorite Coen Brothers movies. And we'll be happy to have a conversation with you down there. Thanks again, Josh, for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. This was a really fun podcast. I learned, or I should say, I added a bit of favorites, whether it be films or filmmakers
Yeah.
through prepping for this podcast. So it was a lot of fun. Good discussion.
Awesome. Excellent. Yes. Thank you all again. Make sure you hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified of all our videos, and we'll see you next time right here on The Real World.